Life comes apart sometimes. You're thinking right now, thanks for that, preacher man. Real groundbreaking stuff there. Life comes apart sometimes. You don't need me to tell you that. But I'm going to say it anyway because sometimes we need permission to name what we already know. Sometimes life breaks and shatters all at once. And other times life just unravels like when you pull on a string on your sweater. Maybe it's a phone call. The one where someone says, "I'm so sorry to tell you this," and you hear yourself say, "What?" Because what they just said can't be true. It can't be real, but they say it again slower this time, and then you realize they're crying. And suddenly you're trying to hold on to the phone, hold it steady, and your legs don't work right, and you're saying, "Okay," and "thank you," and "I'll be there," but you don't even know what you're agreeing to because your brain hasn't caught up to your heart quite yet. And then you're standing in your kitchen or sitting on the edge of your bed, and the person you love is gone, just gone. And nothing will ever be the same. Or maybe you're sitting across from the doctor, and she's using words like stage and treatment options and "we'll know more after," and you're nodding like you understand, but really you're just trying to keep breathing. And then you're walking to your car, and you don't even remember leaving the building. Or maybe it's not that. Maybe it's a different conversation entirely, a relationship that fractures, a job that ends, a plan that collapses, the thing that you were counting on gone or slipping away, and you can't stop it. And now you're supposed to what? Decide something, figure it out, move forward, whatever that means. But every option feels impossible. Every path forward feels like loss. You're faithful, you're trying, and you're doing your best, and you're stuck, and you're afraid, and you don't know what comes next. This is the threshold. Even if you're not there right now, I think you know this place, the place between what was and what will be, the place where life is unraveling and nothing is resolved yet, and you're just trying to take the next breath. This is where we meet Joseph today. Joseph is righteous. Matthew tells us right from the start, like it's supposed to explain everything. Like if we know that about him, we'll know what he'll do next. Righteous men follow the law. Righteous men do what's required. Righteous men protect what's holy and don't compromise. So when Matthew says Joseph is righteous, we're supposed to know he'll do the right thing, whatever that is. And if you're a first century Jew, you know exactly what this would mean. For Joseph, righteousness tells you how to live when things make sense. It doesn't tell you what to do when the woman you love is pregnant and the child isn't yours and every path forward is a kind of loss. Righteousness doesn't come with instructions for this. Mary is pregnant. Joseph knows that, and he knows the child is not his. Matthew doesn't tell us how Joseph found out. Did Mary tell him? Did someone else? Was there a conversation or just silence that said everything? We don't know. What we do know is that Joseph is sitting with a reality he didn't choose, and he can't undo it. And he's not angry. I mean, at least Matthew doesn't say he's feeling that way. Maybe he was at first. I can imagine he cycled through all of the feelings. But by the time that we meet him in the text, he's past anger. He's in that quieter, harder place, the place where you're just trying to figure out what to do when there are no good options. Because what are his options? He could go public, invoke the law, let the community do whatever the law demands, but Joseph knows what that means, and it means Mary's life is over, maybe literally, but most likely she'll be shamed, cast out, left to survive however she can. And the child? Well, the child really doesn't have much of a future at all. The law doesn't protect Mary. It protects Joseph. It gives him a way out that's clean and public and righteous, but it grinds her to dust. Joseph doesn't want that. He's righteous, but his righteousness doesn't need her destruction. And besides, he knows Mary. Whatever happened, whatever this is, she doesn't deserve that. The other option is he could go through with the marriage, pretend the child is his, build a life around a story that doesn't make sense to him, but that would mean living into something he doesn't understand and can't control and certainly didn't ask for. And Joseph is the kind of man who needs things to make sense, not because he's rigid, but because that's what he knows and how he knows what's right. So he decides to step back quietly, a quiet divorce. No public drama, no shame heaped on Mary, just an ending. The kind that lets her survive and lets him walk away. It's not a good option. It's the least bad option he can find. It isn't an easy choice. It's a hard choice. Maybe even a faithful choice. Maybe even a kind choice. Joseph isn't punishing anyone, and he's not protecting his reputation. He's just doing what he's supposed to do, what a righteous man would do in a situation where righteousness feels like loss no matter what. He's trying to do the right thing, and the right thing still feels wrong. Matthew leaves him there for a moment for us, and decision made, future lost, lying awake, faithful, confused, afraid. And he doesn't know what's coming. He doesn't have the angel's words yet. He doesn't have a plan or a promise or a way forward. He just has tonight and the weight of the choice that solves nothing. Righteous, stuck, waiting in the middle of the unraveling. And then God speaks. Not to fix it, not to explain it, not to make the situation easier or the fear go away. An angel appears to Joseph in a dream and says, "Do not be afraid," which certainly isn't the same as "you will not be afraid." Do not be afraid. It's permission to stay, permission to take that next step, permission to live in the unraveling with God. The angel doesn't tell Joseph that everything will be fine, doesn't promise that this will be easy, doesn't remove the risk or the uncertainty or the cost. The angel gives Joseph just enough: a name, a promise, a presence. You are to name him Jesus, and he will save his people from their sins. And then this: they shall name him Emmanuel, which means God is with us. Not God will be with us when this makes sense. Not God was with us back when things were good. God is with us right now in this. Joseph still doesn't know how this is all going to turn out. He doesn't have the whole story. He doesn't have certainty or clarity or control. He just has a promise. And the promise isn't what he expects and what we expect. The promise is presence. God meets Joseph here on that night, not after the birth, not after the fear passes, not after he figures it all out. Right there in the middle of the unraveling. And God says, I am with you. That's enough. You don't need anything else right now. God says, take the next step, Joseph. This is where God meets people. Not after everything is resolved, not when life finally makes sense again, not when the fear is gone or the future is clear. God meets us on the threshold itself, in the waiting room before the results come back, in the conversation that you don't know how to have, in the night, lying awake, decision made but still afraid. God speaks into the unraveling, into the confusion, into the space where nothing is fixed yet and you're just trying to take the next step. Centuries before Joseph, Isaiah tells us about a frightened king who refused to even ask God for help. The enemy's coming, the future was lost, and hope felt like a joke. And God gave him a sign anyway. A young woman would have a child, and she would name him Emmanuel. God is with us. That was the sign. That was the hope. And it happened. The child was born. The enemy retreated. Jerusalem survived. The promise came true. But the bigger hope, the lasting hope, that hadn't come yet. Not in that king's lifetime, not for generations. The promise of God with us kept slipping away and needing to be spoken again and again. But the promise didn't disappear. It kept up showing up in exile when everything was lost, in their return from exile, when hope felt fragile, when every moment, when people thought that God had stepped back, God was still there, still speaking and still present. And still present to a frightened man lying awake in the dark, trying to figure out what to do next. In the mess, in the fear, in the waiting, in the unraveling, not fixing it, just present. And sometimes that's exactly what faith is. Not certainty, not courage, not having it figured out. Just trusting that we're not alone, that God is with us, that the promise has already been spoken, and even if we can't see how it will unfold, we are still waiting. We are still standing on the threshold. We are still standing in the in-between. And the story didn't end that night in Bethlehem. It didn't end at Easter. It didn't even end when the church was born and the Spirit came and the people started telling the story over and over and over again. We're still in a time of pregnant pauses, still holding impossible hope, still living on the threshold. And here's what I want you to hear. The promise didn't wait for Joseph to figure it out. The promise didn't wait for his fear to go away. The promise didn't wait for clarity or courage or for anything to be resolved. God spoke into the unraveling itself, and God still does today. God shows up now in the mess, in the confusion, in the waiting. God shows up in the unraveling, not after, not when things are clear, not when we've got it all together. Right now. Not after we fixed it or figured it out. Not after the fear has passed or the future has come into focus. Right now. In those questions. In the fear, in the turmoil. So if you're there right now, if life is unraveling and you're stuck and you're afraid and you don't know what comes next, I need you to hear this. Your certainty doesn't mean God is absent. Your fear doesn't mean you're failing. Your lack of answers doesn't mean you're doing this wrong. Your exhaustion doesn't mean you've lost your faith. Your doubt doesn't mean you're failing God. The fact that you've been asking how long doesn't mean God isn't listening. God is already with you, not waiting for you to be braver or clearer or more faithful, and not holding back until you get it all together. God, present, already, here, now. You don't need to have it figured out. You don't need to see the full path forward. And you don't even need to know what the next step is. We just need to know this. We are not alone. And the promise has already been spoken. Emmanuel, God with us. Not God with us when things make sense. Not God with us when everything works out. God with us in the unraveling itself. Amen.